Be Light and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to get into this Sunday school lesson, which is about a necessary faith. Ooh, something that's mandatory, something that is permanent, and honestly, something that's vital to our lives. That's what we're gonna get into today. Make sure you like, comment, and definitely subscribe so you can get into these Sunday school lessons every single week. So today's scripture is gonna come from Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 through 8, and then we're gonna jump to 13 through 16. Now, faith is a word that I think we all sometimes seek as a challenge for us every single day. I know personally for myself, believing in something that you cannot see, but knowing that throughout the journey, God is challenging us to trust in Him that it is going to work out. That is what we are going to be getting into pretty much this week, and that's what I'm going to challenge all of us to do. Start trusting and start believing in things that we cannot see yet, but we're going to trust in God that He's going to work it out. Even though we want that destination, whether that be a job, a relationship, a friendship, anything that's going on in our life, we know what we want our destination to be. But we forget we have to trust throughout the journey. And that is the part that we tend to skip away from. So there are going to be two major themes that we are going to discuss. Faith as a pilgrimage, number one. Like I said, faith is about the journey, the process to getting to the destination. We all are ready for that reward. We're ready for that success. We're ready for that end goal that we want. Like, we know we want that dream job. We know we want that dream house. We know we want our dream mate, our dream spouse. We know that we want our ideal tribe, our ideal community. We know that we want things to get back to normal as soon as possible. But we tend to forget that faith is about the pilgrimage. Faith is about that journey towards it. Right now, we're still in the journey to even getting our lives back to the way that it kind of used to be. We need to enjoy this process, and it's a waiting process in a way. Waiting to where we're not impatient, waiting so that we have more faith. Every single day, we have to trust more and more that God is going to work it out. The second thing that we're going to talk about in the Sunday school lesson is about patience, endurance. Whew, you guys, it's so hard to be patient in today's society, especially with our phones, social media, instant gratification. We want something right now. We cannot wait, or we're going to move on. That's what faith is about. Being patient, enduring the waiting process. How are we going to act throughout that waiting process? So, like I said, we're going to get into Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 through 8, and then we're going to skip to verse 13 through 16. And you all know I'll be reading from the Message Bible. So let's get right into it. So first I'm going to get into Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 through 2. The fundamental fact of existence is that this trust in God, this faith, is the firm foundation under everything that make life worth living. It's our handle on what we can't see. The act of faith is what distinguished our ancestors, set them above the crowd. Just those two verses alone is so much meat, so much context that we can just pull from. The first thing I want to just acknowledge is that we need to remember that trusting in God is the foundation to anything that we want to build upon. If we want that dream job, we have to trust God along the way. We have to trust throughout the process of applying for jobs, the interview process, even negotiations. We have to trust in God and believe in the unseen. We want our relationships to work out. We have to trust in God that it's going to work out. Whatever is meant to be will be. In due time, God will work it out. How are you going to wait in that process? How is your patience going to be endured through that process? The next thing I want to make note of in this chunk is that it reminds us, and it's almost nostalgic, where it's like, oh my gosh, our ancestors, the only way they were able to endure is because they trusted in God and they had faith that is going to work itself out. I don't know if you all look at me, but yes, when I read that, I thought about just the civil rights movement, slavery. They had to have faith and they had to endure with patience that God is going to work it out. You know, it's almost like that peaceful non-movement protest. You have to believe that God is going to work it out throughout that journey. So when you get to that destination, everything came for the greater good. And if you're wondering, why is my journey taking a little bit longer than someone else's? Well, number one, we don't know what they had to endure during their process. And then second, we just have to remember that God is preparing us. If we got something quick, we probably wouldn't appreciate it. But because we went through a journey, we went through a process, and yes, it did take time, we're able to honor it even more. So now we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3 through 4. By faith, we see the world called into existence by God's word. What we see created by what we don't see. By an act of faith, Abel brought a better sacrifice to God than Cain. It was what he believed and not what he brought that made the difference. That's what God noticed and approved as righteous. After all these centuries, the belief continued to catch our notice. So now we're getting into multiple examples where we're going to see these iconic people throughout the Bible where their faith is tested and where they saw the challenge and conquered it. Our first example is, of course, everybody knows the story of Cain and Abel, the jealous brother taking his brother out. But in a sense, we're not focusing on the end result. What we're focusing on is Abel. Abel, the reason why he was acknowledged and seen to a higher regard was not because of who he was, how he looked, what he even brought to the table. It's because what he believed. You know, we have to get out of this notion that, I have more education, so I should be able to get to the destination. I should be able to get to whatever I want. Or I look a certain way, so I should be able to get it just like that. I mean, look at me. We have to get out of those, superficial characteristics of what the world might see as, oh yeah, you're going to get it because you look a certain way, or you've obtained a certain amount of money, or you have a certain amount of degrees. No, what God is looking for is your belief in him. Do you believe? The minute you believe, the minute you totally trust in God, that is when he's going to give you what your heart desires. You don't have to keep telling God what you want in life. He already has it there. He already has that destination there. So stop focusing on the destination and focus on that journey. Focus on that process. Focus on trusting in God. Like, God, I know I'm waiting on you right now. I know that destination is there for me. I got to work on trusting on you. I got to trust in you. I trust in God today. Say that every morning. I trust in God today. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to doubt myself. I'm not going to doubt someone else's actions. I'm going to trust in God today. So now we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 5 through 6. By an act of faith, Enoch skipped death completely. They looked all over and couldn't find him because God had taken him. We know on the basis of reliable testimony that before he was taken, he pleased God. It's impossible to please God apart from faith. And why? because anyone who wants to approach God must believe both that he exists and that he cares enough to respond for those who seek him. Ooh, we have another iconic example of Enoch, and we know him as this iconic character in the Bible because what he believed, and that is what's pleasing God the most. You know, it's not enough just to say, yes, I believe in God. Yes, I know God exists. It's the fact that we have to believe wholeheartedly in our heart. I want you all just write down in the comments section, when have you doubted God and the moment you believed in him, it all worked out for the greater good? Write down below, because I know I've had plenty of times where I've gotten in my head, I've worried, and sometimes people say silence is greater than noise, and that's exactly true. I'm going to put my little testimony out there on the forefront. Sometimes when it's silent, when I don't get a response, I sometimes overthink, I create, scenarios in my head, and then I just have to stop myself and say, you know what? In due time, God is going to work it out. And trust me, once I wholeheartedly believe in that, that is what's pleasing to God. And that's when the destination happens. That's when the success happens, when you believe. Enoch was able to escape death because he believed. Can you imagine what you can do, what God can do for you once you believe in him? All your worries will go away. All your doubts will go away because you have to believe. You have to trust. And I know sometimes we've been disappointed by our friends, by our families, by even, society, like what we have endured in these past 2 years. But we have to continue to trust in God. That is the only way that is going to work out for us. That's the only way we're going to be able to endure our journey to get to the destination. Now we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7 through 8. By faith, Noah built a ship in the middle of dry land. He was warned about something he couldn't see and acted on what he was told. The result, his family was saved. His act of faith drew a sharp line between the evil of the unbelieving world and the righteous of the believing world. As a result, Noah became intimate with God. By an act of faith, Abraham said yes to God's call to travel to an unknown place that would become his home. When he left, he had no idea where he was going. By an act of faith, he lived in the country promised him, lived as a stranger, camping in tents. So we're getting into our last two iconic characters, Noah being one and then Abraham. Noah believed, even when naysayers said that he was crazy. Why are you building this ark? Don't you know we are at the end of the world? But he said, yes, I'm going to trust in God. And because he believed in the journey, he was able to get to the destination. Lastly, with Abraham, I think this is the most realistic of them all. Abraham always wanted a family, always wanted children. Throughout that entire process, throughout that entire journey, he had to believe in God. He had to believe in the unseen. He didn't even know what God could do for him. He knew that he wanted a particular destination, but God has so much more in store for him because he trusted in the journey. Don't focus on the destination because God has it under control. Focus on the journey. The journey is to trust. If you focus on trusting God throughout that journey, it's going to work out. So now we're going to finish up with Hebrews chapter 11, verse 13 through 16. Each one of these people of faith died not yet having in hand what was promised, but still believing. How did they do it? They saw it as a way off in the distance, waved their greeting, and accepted the fact that they're transients in this world. People who live this way Make it plain that they are looking for their true home. If they were homesick for the old country, they could have gone back anytime they wanted, but they were after a far better country than that, heaven country. You can see why God is so proud of them and has a city waiting for them. And that is the biggest thing to know. Throughout our journey, we have to realize that not only are we trusting in God because our heart desires particular things that we want to achieve, but we have to trust in God because the bigger goal is that we are saved and we can one day live peaceful and even leave behind a world, to people, and it be a better place, and we get to heaven. That is the ultimate goal. We have to trust. It is so necessary for us to do. And honestly, it's a little bit more relieving. Have you realized when you're stressed, when you're worried, when you're constantly being negative, things tend to not go the way you wanted to. The days seem to go a little bit longer. You seem to not feel like you can do anything. But when you have positive thoughts create positive results. When you believe, when you trust in things you cannot see, when you focus on that journey instead of the destination, it's going to always work out. Because wholeheartedly, you're going to be a better person each day. All right, you guys, I hope you all enjoyed this lesson. Make sure you like, comment, and definitely subscribe. Until next time.